Good evening and welcome. Tonight is Wednesday, September 28th. This is the Hedrick Hudson Board of Ed meeting. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Can I get a motion to open the board meeting? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to, I'm used to doing two steps. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Second? Oh, okay. I'm listening for noise here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any items anybody would like pulled from the consent agenda? All right. Okay. Then can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as the items on the consent agenda? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was quick. That brings us to the items from the consent agenda, and that is 3 donations, all for the BV school. I had it.
He has come up to the
I know, I just am sort of like on a quest here. The first one is to approve a donation from a retired teacher, and that was, the gift is from Sarah K. Eyring, who retired, was a special ed teacher, I'm not sure how many years, but quite a while here at Penn High. And she left items like books and classroom materials and other manipulatives and such to the district, so that it can go on for the rest of the children thereafter, and frankly as additional resources for the teachers coming behind her. The second item is a donation from Target, which is a program that I believe all 3 schools do, elementary schools, and Target is donating $82.26 to BV schools. It's a function of people spending and Target giving like a, I don't want to say refund, but a contribution. And the third is from Ahold for Buchanan Blank, and I believe it's a similar type program, and that is a donation in the amount of $91.08. So we will approve all 3 together. Can I get a motion to approve all 3 items? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And a thank you to the individuals who make the effort to do the paperwork for Ahold and for Target. And thank you to Sarah K. Eyring for remembering the school and the students that will be coming hereafter. We appreciate your generosity. That brings us to audience comments, which we will take a pass, and superintendent's report.
Just a few quick updates. We are currently in the middle of Spirit Week, homecoming week at the high school. It will end on Saturday with a number of events. We will induct our next generation or next group of Hall of Famers to the Athletic Hall of Fame. Luncheon's at 1 o'clock on Saturday. The homecoming football game is 5 o'clock Saturday night. My telephone tells me it's supposed to rain Friday or Saturday, so if you're going, bring a poncho, umbrella,
And a sweatshirt underneath.
and a sweatshirt underneath, because it is officially fall, that is for sure. It's also the season of Meet the Teacher. Tonight we have Meet the Teacher night at Blue Mountain Middle School. We've had other functions at BV and at Furnace Woods, and I know other open houses and things are scheduled over the next couple weeks. The Building Conditions Survey, this is a report that we have to file with the State Education Department every 5 years. We have finished that task, and now we're working with our Facilities Committee on narrowing the focus and identifying some of the priorities. I mention that here because this inevitably will become a very public discussion with our community around capital project out in the future. but we're going through the throes of identifying the work that needs to be done and prioritizing that work. And lastly, Lynn Rafalik, our Executive Director of People Personnel Services, had some very intensive and laborious eye surgery earlier in the week, and she's doing well. I just talked to her a little over an hour ago. She's tired, her eyes are closed, and she's ready to open them. And she'll be back with us next week. She wanted to send her regards to everybody.
Good luck, Lynn. It's gotta be miserable. You probably don't realize just how boring sitting on the couch, because you can't go anywhere is.
Yeah, or
Not
see
reading
anything.
or watching television or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, she
Feel
said,
like-
stop emailing me, just call me. Okay.
I can't read them.
Right.
Well, good luck to Lynn. The building condition survey, that will be a conversation that will be part of our board meeting and probably within the next month. And the facilities will sort of pull things together
Yep.
so that they can facilitate the discussion a little bit.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. That brings us committee reports. Facilities just met, so that was clearly the topic. Policy is, we're going to have a few policy readings, so we know what they're doing. Finance hasn't geared up as yet because it's not quite budget season, it's a little bit. Are there any other committee meetings?
I went to Furnace Woods
The
PTA
PTA.
meeting, and it was a good audience. We had a
Good.
large number of people. Nice. And we talked about the plans for the 50th. They're going to be having special events every month to show kindness in some way, shape, or form. So this past month in September, where they were filling in buckets with like anonymous things that the kids saw about somebody else they liked, compliments.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and then they read them off to each other. And
Very
it was
nice.
really nice. And so there'll be something different each month, which I think is really nice. They're going to do something for the VA. They're going to do Run Against Hunger, and
Oh, that's next month.
Yeah.
Very good. Very nice. I'd like to see them giving back as well. All right, well, thank you. You're quickly unwinding. You have something to add?
I wouldn't say quickly, but yes.
All right, well, we'll just wait for you.
Technology committee met this afternoon also. Good group of people. It seems like the main goal of the meeting was to set the direction of the committee for the year, and sounds like there's a lot of great ideas, and the committee chair, I think, had to cut it back to a manageable direction, and also how the opening of school went with some of the changes, specifically with the Google Docs, Gmail, and all that.
Name website.
Sounds like a lot of demands, which are all technology based, but they're making it through, but they're trying to figure out how to even make it better so they can utilize the equipment
Through.
that's available to them better. So it sounds like a good meeting.
Okay. I'm sure, Matthew, you get a lot of feedback regarding this, so how is that transition going?
Things have calmed down. Usually takes a couple of weeks. This year it took a month. It was a
There's a
rough
lot of
opening this
changes.
year. We had a lot of new programs in place, new website, Gmail, Google Calendar. So a lot of new systems for people to adjust to. Some things that we probably could have been more proactive about, but it's always challenging. Start of the year, even if we did nothing. Start of
Well,
the school year
everybody was
tough.
given they were given training, they were given an opportunity to. So that's, to a certain extent, maybe not give all at once, but
Yeah. I mean,
that's important. If they got the training.
Summer is when we get to do our upgrades, so unfortunately, the start of school follows summer.
It was a lot.
I mean, the alternative is doing it during the school year, and that would be worse.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. That brings us to policy readings.
Yeah.
The first one is 4527 CIPA.
Yeah, let me give just a quick overview, and then we can have our procedural things take place. I'll start with 7.4, 9118 health insurance policy. This is mandated policy that comes out of and is born out of the Affordable Care Act, which mandates districts have calculations for health insurance for full and part-time employees. So this is one of the maybe handful of policies that the policy committee worked on last year that outsourced it. And what I mean by that is we engaged our legal experts, Keenan Bean, to draft a policy as well as a regulation, because this is very specifically tied to the Affordable Care Act. The first reading of this policy was last spring. We decided to table it at that time to see if there were going to be any changes. We knew Congress was considering doing some things differently, and that's just not the case. So about 2 weeks ago, Keenan Bean came back with the exact same set of recommendations. The other policies, I'll go up backwards. 9116 is an HR policy that Matthew had been working on that helps just organize a little bit with more clarity leaves of absences. School district and Board of Education needs to have a policy around leaves of absences. Each contract that we have with different unions has different language that some refer to the policy and others don't. So what this policy does is create some uniformity for everybody. Policy 4710 actually was born out of a comptroller's audit. Over the last 2 school years, the Office of the State Controller looked at how school districts, specifically high schools, how they archive student records, specifically grades, and who has access to those grades to change them. There had been a number of instances statewide where certain school personnel had manipulated report card grades and test grades in order for students to receive diplomas. That was widespread throughout the state and even the country. So then the state controller initiated an audit in, I believe, 13 school districts. So the recommendations in that policy come from findings he had found in those other districts. And lastly, 4527 talks about essentially internet safety and some updates around that policy, because the last time we had looked at that policy was back in 2012. So Barbara, if you want to start reading, someone can wait for the reading. We can get into more specifics if there are questions.
Okay.
We'll start with 4527 and work back down.
4527, in compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act. and
Motion away
regulations.
further reading.
Thank you. Next one is policy 4710 on academic achievement. Grading is considered a positive tool to indicate achievement and development.
Motion away further reading. Just real quick, does anybody have any questions on 4527 before we, Barbara's just sort of touching on them, and Superintendent explained them. Does anybody have any additional questions as we go through them?
And just for Lisa and Bill, that these 3 are the first reading. We'll come back at our
We'll
next
come back
board
and
meeting
discuss them.
in October and have
Everything
another
has to
round
have
of
at least 2
discussion.
readings.
And if no changes, we can adopt it then.
Next one is policy number 9116, work environment leaves of
Wait
absence.
for the reading of policy 9116.
Thank you. And last one is the health insurance policy. The Board of Education acknowledges its obligations under the
Motion
state.
away further reading.
Thank you.
Or seeing whose turn it was. That was you, Lisa. We
Oh,
were
I'm
going to boot it
sorry.
to
And that's it. And we are continuing to work on some other policies. Gifted program is one, and the definition of giftedness. So we're working diligently on some other policies as well.
So none of these require any action at this point. We can, actually, the second reading, we can, for 7.49118, which is the health insurance policy, which is the one that Superintendent spoke of, coming from the attorneys, and sort of, I guess is, I guess synonymous with Obamacare's requirements. So we can vote to approve that one and then discuss the other 3 next, or we can
If you
choose to wait for the other.
If you approve all 4 tonight, That, well, no, I'm just saying that allows the first three to move to a second reading in October, and it approves in
I
finality.
didn't think they had to approve the
fourth
first, okay.
It just moves to a second
Yeah.
reading.
Right.
All
Okay,
right.
no, so
Right.
then, so the only action that's
So how
needed.
should we be doing that?
Is
should
the
We
do
will
first one.
anyway. The
Yeah.
only action we need to is if you're interested in approving the 9118, the health insurance policy. Can I get a motion to approve?
Certainly.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then that one's approved and that's taken care of. Generally, I would suggest to have all 7 board members on this, but I think the fact that it is sort of, legally obligated and it pretty much goes along with those requirements.
Yeah, and that's a good point Mary Pat raised. The 2 of our 3 board members who aren't with us are also on the policy committee, and they were a part of wrestling with the Affordable Care Act one. So I think that's why that works.
Well, they're
Typically,
familiar, but
yeah.
just generally, I want
Typically,
to
we
make sure
wanna-
everybody's on board.
Yeah, typically
Yeah.
we want to do that.
Okay. Any board comments, any new business? This is clearly a quick meeting this evening. Okay. There is no second executive. Our next meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight, October,
Next month,
19th.
October 3rd.
You do
3
have a
weeks from
meeting
tonight.
October 5th.
Oh, yes, but, well, there is one next, but that's just executive.
Yes.
Correct.
So on October 19th, so 3 weeks from this evening, will be our next board meeting. It will be here at the high school library. In the meantime, as the superintendent said, there will be homecoming this weekend. And again, check the school calendar because there's so many beginning of school activities and events that you want to be aware of for students.
And the whole thing.
That's all part of the homecoming.
1 o'clock.
Yep.
Right.
So, and it's going to be quite a weekend. So other than that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.